There's what it looks like now. Cut those standoffs for the coil packs, got those off there. Filed it down smooth and weld up those holes right there. So I think I'm going to smooth those off and paint them. And I put a cover over the top of that hole, and I'm going to mount the coil packs right there. And I think it'll look pretty cool. That motor is so cool looking. Kind of hate to just cover it all up. So yeah, right there, cut those off. And right here is what it looks like with the wire loom going over the motor. Can't see the wires, can you? That is it for the wires. A couple will go to the starter. One's for the oil. Got to finish up a couple of the sensors. The coolant temperature sensor plug that comes out of the loom wants to be right here, and there's a spot right there, which is going to be the, it looks like a plug. I'm sure it is, because on the other side there's the sensor right there. So I'll swap that plug and this sensor, get that over there. Figured out, this is the LS2 with an E38 ECU, the computer. And you got to match up the fly-by-wire and the throttle body. All that stuff has to be matched up with the computer. So I had bought the C5 stuff, which uses a separate module for the throttle actuator control, and this one don't use it, so I had to buy a different pedal, which is made to go with the E38 ECU. And there's my plug coming right out of the harness that guy made. So the TAC module is internal on this particular variation of the computer. I found out a little bit about them. So some of them have 3 plugs. This one seems to be kind of unique, like, for some reason. I don't know why, but it is. Sounds like something I'd get myself into. But I think I got it wrapped up. I'm going to have to tie in. I got all the pinouts for this computer. And I'm going to have to tie in, take this plug apart for the air conditioning. So I think I got that lined out, which I need to do. There's what the harness looks like coming up the block, and it lays right over that bracket. There's some wires that come down in here for the cam and stuff like that, alternator. The wires that go up over the motor, I tucked underneath the rails, so it looks really cool. You can't see it. And he had the wire for the coil pack coming out right here, because it meets up with the coil pack. So snipped those wires, fished it back through, which when I take these apart I'm going to finish this up better. But that's what all these loose wires are, for the connection for the coil pack. So I'm going to redo those wires, lengthen them out, run them down where you can't see them up into here where my coil packs are going to be. So that wire will be out of sight. I'm going to cut a rectangle in here, just like the other side, for an access to get to all that stuff. And had to take all those tubes apart, get them welded. As soon as I get these ready to be welded, do all that stuff at once. So I think I've got everything ironed out where I want it. Now I pretty much got to take everything back apart and then put it together, you know, for real. Starting clear back at the coolant tubes, the radiator, the AC lines, you know, put those together. Here's all the stuff for the ices. Bunch of different modules I got to mount in different places. Here's my Race Logic traction control. A bunch of stuff to wire in for that. I got to tie into the terminals, probably right here somewhere, for the injectors. So we'll get that done. Okay, so lots been going on. Been a lot of laziness and going back and tying up a lot of loose ends. I had, you know, everything I've done has just been a mock-up, so I got to make everything permanent. So a lot of it I got to tear back apart and put back together. And so I got the intake back off there, took the valve covers in, had the I cut the standoffs off, and the threaded holes were down in there pretty deep, so I had to have those welded up because I don't need those on there. So I'm gonna trick that out, make that smooth. And I had a whole box of goodies here. There's all my tubes with the ends welded on there. Had a buddy of mine do that. That's pretty hard to do. You know, I know how to weld aluminum, but not like that. And I do know it's hard to weld something thick against something thin. So he did good. There's the valve covers. There's my tank with all the fittings in there. So that's cool. And what else do I got? There's an AC my power connector. There's all my other tubes. Some of those are kind of dirty, so I'll clean those up. That's gonna be cool. So I'm gonna try something kind of weird. Seen on the internet, there's a lot of people painting stuff and making it look like those anodized coatings. So there's some primer, there's some anodizing. I'm going to do that on these valve covers. We'll see how it looks. I'll probably do the coil packs like red. So I don't know. We'll see what it looks like. I think it's going to look pretty cool. It's going to look pretty bright, stand out. So really starting to make some headway here and be able to tie things down and be done with it. On my fuel system, I'll be able to button up and be done. Get the tanks mounted, all the fuel lines mounted up, and I'm going to do, something more permanent on the motor. There's hardly any clearance in that thing, and I like a nice, positive response from the, from the car, suspension-wise, motor-wise, everything. And this just adds to it. These motor mounts, it just makes a more positive feel between the gas pedal, and then having good brakes. Just gives you better control. And to keep the thing from shaking around in there, because there's no tolerance really for anything to move on that motor, so it needs to behave and just stay put right where it is. So I'll put those in there, get that tied down, and then I know for sure my clearances will be good around these hoses and the pump. So since my last video, got all that stuff welded. I've secured everything in the tunnel, which is cool to get that done. Oh, I got my AC line crimped, so that's installed, tightened up. I put some holders on all these lines so that doesn't move around. Got the vacuum switch mounted that runs the that heater valve, and those hoses are in there, so tied down in every angle, so I'm not worried about it. That thing is suspended in midair and it'll be fine right there. It won't move. And I used some mounts I got from Speed Raptor Motor Works, and that holds down the tubes for the coolant tubes in there. So that's in there solid. And the way I got those in there, that thing is just wedged, pinched in there. So lays in there good, it's not going to move. Everything's insulated, it's not going to vibrate. And my cables for the e-brake, I finally got around to sending those in. Those guys are pretty good, California push-pull. And as far as quickness, because it's a couple days and they're already sending them back. So I'll have a real short cable up here and then two long ones to wrap around. And I'll tie that into this thing, which is going to go under all that, and I'll be able to tie those down to this and then mount that e-brake box or whatever that thing is there, that connector. Been rounding up sensors, and I figured out the MAF sensor I need. This harness, the guy set it up to use an LS3 airflow sensor. I guess in the aftermarket world, that's just a good setup to run. It's got better resolution or better tables as far as being able to program it and tune it compared to an LS2. So I don't know, it's the modern thing to do. So that's what I found out, and I got one of those. And a bung, because it's got to be welded into the pipe. So I got my pedal. I got everything to get the wiring for the motor to run pretty much ready to roll. Up front I got everything mounted. All the extra sleeves for the water hose tube I cut in half and used as a insulation, from rubbing on things going through here on the bottom, so it doesn't hit the battery box or the battery, and up against the steering rack, and then coming through to here. And in doing that, that thing is just stuck, so no movement, no vibration there. Got the oil for the air compressor. 8 ounces of this PEG oil. And 2 ounces already came in my compressor, so I just dumped 6 ounces throughout the system in there. Got everything tightened down. Put my new dryer in there. And mounted the battery where I want it. Seems to be a good spot. I ended up turning it like this. I made it to where if it's over that way and this way as much as it can, it still clears the steering linkage. Yeah, I wanted to put it the other way. I can still get it out this way easy enough, but by the time I put these hoses in here, there's no way for the heater there. And I got this mounted in there for good. That came out pretty clean. Looks good. Oh, I finally got this thing done, where I mounted this carrier for the shaft. And I just tied off the brake pedal, brake light switch mount, and made a piece of metal, tied that into there, holds it nice and solid. That way the end of this thing stays centered in there, doesn't rattle around. That's done too. Radiators mounted. Took the fans apart, painted these up, cleaned it up. Got my new panel bent, and I got it set up to be removable, so I'll be able to take that out and service things and then put it back in. I got the nut certs here, a couple down there, a couple on the sides, and I'll take that out and put it in as need be. When I put this line in, I wanted to stretch it over here, but I made a cut out here. I'm just going to let it go out there. Look, it's where it wants to be, and looks good right there. And I'll tie that down. A couple spots probably. And I did have those running through here, but I changed my mind and brought them down. Brought them down in there, and then through the tunnel, and that just opens up more room right through there. That worked out pretty good. So now I think I got everything done up front there. It's back to the motor, get the motor put together.